Welcome back to our continuing coverage, Election 2013 on PE.com. This is Jeff Horseman for the Press Enterprise and PE.com, and we hope you're able to join us in our first installment when we give you the initial results for a number of local races that are being decided right now, actually, as the votes are being tallied, and we're going to try to get you some updates with the latest figures, and then we're going to have columnist Cassie McDuff on to talk a little bit about the city of San Bernardino election, which is certainly shaping up to be a momentous one, for the city. So we're going to go first with the latest results, and I think the first one we got coming up is once again the Banning Unified School District. Again, this is 5 candidates running for 2 seats. And right now we have, with just about 30% of precincts reporting, we have Martha Badderio in the lead, who's one of the challengers with 34.5% of the votes. Jan Spann coming in with 23.7%. I believe she was one of the incumbents in this. And then David Van Den Heuvel, another outsider, coming in third, followed by incumbent Jim Smith and John Kalani. So next we're going to take you to the Moreno Valley Unified School District. Again, this is to fill the unexpired term of Mike Rios, who was convicted of pimping and pandering and had to give up his seat as a result. And right now, it looks like we have just over 54% of the vote in on that. And Gary Baugh, one of the 3 candidates for that, has over half the vote, so things are looking good for him. Next, this is the Riverside Unified School District. These are 2 incumbents with 2, each with a challenger. Right now in that race, we have just about 78% of the vote in, and incumbent Kathy Allevy has a very comfortable lead, 73% of the vote in that over challenger Arthur Murray. This is the other seat that's up in the Riverside School District, and with about 2/3 of the votes in, challenger Brent Lee has a 58.4 to 41.5% lead over Chuck Beatty, who is the incumbent and has long been in public service. So this could be the end of an era if this vote continues to hold up. Next, we got Norco City Council. Again, 5 candidates, 2 seats, and right now incumbent Kevin Bash looks to have a firm hold on it with 41% of the votes, followed by Greg Newton with 29%, Greg Bowen in 3rd place, Trini Daniels in 4th, and Stephen McCarron is rounding up the field there. Next, City of Riverside Council, Ward 3. This is, again, the seat that Rusty Bailey held prior to him being elected mayor. And with 75% of precincts reporting, Mike Subaru continues to lead by just about 400 votes over Valerie Hill. Again, these are 2 veteran law enforcement officials. Mike Subaru, retired from the California Highway Patrol. Valerie Hill, a retired undersheriff. Moving on, we go to Canyon Lake, where the voters were asked to decide the fate of Measure D. This is a special tax that was to keep the city's lone fire station open. City officials put this on the ballot, and they're saying, if this didn't pass, that they were going to have to shut the doors in that fire station and have to rely on fire stations in Lake Elsinore and Menifee to serve residents there. And the good news is, I guess if you're supporting that measure, is that the yes votes have a slight lead, but just to clarify, this needs a 2/3 majority to pass. So unless 66% or more voters decide to pass this, then it's going to fail. And again, city official says if it fails, they have no choice because of the budget constraints to close the fire station there. And this is another measure, Measure E, that was on the ballot for Canyon Lake residents. This was billed as an advisory vote on a proposed development for Getz Hill, which rises above the city's southwest area, and looks like the majority of residents so far don't want any development there. So again, that sends a signal that development on that hill is not desired. So moving ahead to the city of San Bernardino, we just got some updated results, and we have a whole host of races there, starting with the race for mayor. And with just over 53% of precincts supporting out of 10 candidate field, Wendy McCamick is the leader with just about 25% of the vote. She is the Ward 7 City Councilwoman. Carrie Davis is coming up second with a little over 23% of the vote. Now, if these results hold, what that will mean is that McCamick and Davis will face each other in a future runoff. And McCamick is actually, there's an interesting result that we'll tell you in a little bit as we go through these. Moving on to San Bernardino City Ward 1, Virginia Marquez continues to lead in that with 1/3 of precincts supporting. She has 56% of the vote, and she has 2 challengers in that race. And in Ward 2, challenger Benito Barrios is leading Robert Jenkins, the incumbent, 55% to 44%, with 85% of precincts reporting. So Robert Jenkins, you may recall, he's an incumbent, but he's facing charges having to do with stalking and identity theft. Perhaps that's, well, it seems like that's weighing on voters' minds thus far. As Benito, again, these are the most updated. These just came in, so they don't reflect what's on your screen. But Benito Barrios has 549 votes to 445 for Robert Jenkins. Moving on. In Ward 4, this is with 50% of precincts in. Fred Charette continues to have just under half of the vote as he faces 2 challengers in his bid for re-election. And now we're getting into the recalls. Again, there were 3 recalls on questions on the ballot before voters. And again, these are the updated results with just over half of precincts reporting. A majority, almost 60% of voters are, say yes to recalling City Attorney Jim Penman, who's been a central figure in city politics, very polarizing figure. A lot of people blame him for, in part for the city being bankrupt, and he obviously, says, he believes he's defending the city, and he's stood up for this, and he has the city's best interest at heart. But if this holds up, he's looking at a recall, and the person who would take his place would be, it's not reflected quite there, but Gary Sines is leading Tim Prince in the race to succeed Jim Penman if the recall succeeds. So moving on to the John Valdivia Ward 3 recall, right now with 50% of precincts supporting, the no votes against recalling John Valdivia are leading by a roughly 2-to-1 margin. We'll continue to see that. And again, if there's only one candidate listed on the ballot to succeed John Valdivia if he is recalled, and that's Roxanne Williams. And the third recall is in Ward 7, where Wendy McCamick, who is running for mayor, is right now one of the leaders early on in the race for that. But at the same time, voters are saying, with 82% of precincts reporting, that yes, they want to recall her. And if they do recall her, there are 5 candidates who put their name in to replace her. And right now, with again just about 82% of precincts reporting, Jim Mulvihill has about 41% of the vote. In terms of leading those candidates who are looking to succeed Wendy McCamick, but maybe she might lose Ward 7 seat and gain the mayor's seat. We'll see. Moving on, Menifee Union School District, Reg Bennett continues to lead Rita Peters in the latest results. And in the Paris Union School District, this was a race, 5 candidates, 3 seats. And right now, Pepe Garcia continues to be the leading vote getter, followed by, closely behind are Natalie Vasquez and Monica Martin. Natalie Vasquez is one of the challengers, and Monica Martin, along with Jose Pepe Garcia, are actually incumbents in that race. So we might see a little turnover on that school board. And is that it for now? Okay, well, that kind of gives you the recap. And again, these numbers are being updated throughout the evening, and we're going to continue to bring you them on PE.com. But right now, I am joined by columnist Cassie McDuff, who is kind of our expert on all things San Bernardino. We want to thank you for joining us. And Cassie, big election, lots of stuff going on in San Bernardino. What do you think about what you've seen so far in terms of the early returns?
Well, frankly, if the numbers hold, I am surprised that the city attorney is being recalled. Jim Penman has been in office longer than anybody else in San Bernardino at this time. He has run successively for re-election, and he's run for mayor twice and lost. So my interpretation was the voters like him as city attorney, but they don't want him for their mayor. But now with the numbers coming in, as you just read the updated results, it looks like he will be recalled.
Yeah, and speaking of recalls, I mean, there's such an odd situation. On the one hand, you could have Wendy McCamick in a position to, be recalled from her Ward 7 seat, but given an opportunity by the voters to run for mayor. I mean, what do you make of that? I've never seen anything like that.
We knew this might happen. It was clear that in her ward, she has a small universe of voters who feel strongly about her and know her well. She's been elected 4 times. And in the broader city context, there were 10 names on the ballot. And so we knew there was probably going to be a runoff. And she's probably the most recognizable name citywide. Interestingly, the person who is the second top vote getter remains Carrie Davis, very much of a newcomer, an accountant, supported by some prominent people in town. And apparently his campaign has worked to make him come in second. The other interesting thing about that race that I was looking at, Jeff, was how would Chaz Kelly do? Chaz Kelly pleaded guilty to misusing campaign funds. He resigned from the council. His plea agreement means that he can never hold public office again. But his name was on the ballot because it was too late when he resigned to remove it. And so we find that he is not getting very many votes. So that means the voters are paying attention, and they're not going to waste their votes on somebody who can't hold office.
All right. What about some of these other results? Again, like, wards 1, 2, and 4, you had just regular elections. Are you surprised to see Marquez and Charette leading and Jenkins looking like he's heading for defeat?
Well, I think both Charette and Marquez thought that they were going to be in runoffs because each had 2 challengers. But it looks like Marquez is going to hold on to her office without having to go to a runoff. Charette, it looks like, will be in a runoff at the way things look now with Anthony Jones, another relative unknown. The other interesting race here, of course, is Ward 2, where Robert Jenkins has been charged with some very serious 30 counts, 18 of them felonies. And it's a very close race at this point. It looks like his challenger, very much of an unknown, could actually edge him out.
Are you surprised that it's that close given the seriousness of the charges that were against him? I mean, is this a case of if he didn't have that, maybe it'd be a different outcome, or what do you think?
Well, certainly I think it would have been a different outcome because he was supported by the police union. They have backed his campaign. After these charges, which involve a faked police department memo, they withdrew their support. So he didn't have that financial support and the endorsement that he's been able to count on in his first election. This is his first election for a full term in office. And so, again, I think people are paying attention to all the disruption that's been going on in the city. Now, Jenkins says he's innocent. His attorney says he will not resign from office. He's going to fight the charges. So we'll see.
Okay, getting back to Jim Penman, it seems that if he is indeed recalled, that's kind of a momentous development in terms of city politics. I mean, I'm not as familiar with the city as you are, but it seems, looking from the outside, that a lot of people think he has a lot of influence, and he's certainly not shy about speaking his mind, and in some cases making rather bold statements that maybe fire up his supporters but rankle his critics. I mean, what would not having Jim Penman on the council, what would that do in terms of the dynamic and everything? I mean,
well, he's not on the council, but sometimes people think he acts like he is.
Good point.
But it's a complete game changer, Jeff. I think it totally changes the conversation on the dais. A lot of people have criticized Penman, saying that he doesn't constrain himself to giving legal advice. He gets into policy matters. So with Gary Sines, the likely winner, it looks like at this point, it's too early to say, right, but if it goes the way it's been going for the rest of the evening, Gary Sines says he's not going to be a policymaker. He's going to be someone who will stick with giving legal opinions, legal advice, as most city attorneys traditionally do. Penman has been a leader of an opinion leader. He has managed to get council members to support his point of view and to go along with his view of how things should be. And so if he's recalled, indeed, that is a big change for San Bernardino.
All right. And, we've written extensively and continue to write about the city going through the bankruptcy process, and it's still in the middle of that. I mean, does this election have any impact on that whatsoever, or is it because it's in the courts, is it kind of, determined along that route?
Well, the city has an outside counsel who's really taking the lead on the bankruptcy matter. He's somebody who's a specialist in bankruptcy. So I don't think there will be a change. Of course, there's going to be a new mayor. In February, that's when the runoff is, and that's when the mayor would actually take office in March. And so, depending on who is elected, it will depend if they retain Paul Glassman, the outside lawyer who's been representing them. But it's a very critical time for the city. They're in the middle of negotiating with creditors as to how much they'll be able to pay the creditors. CalPERS is still fighting them. And so it's a very crucial time. I don't know if they're going to want to change horses in the middle of the stream on the bankruptcy proceedings.
And one final question. I mean, his name's not on the ballot. He's not running again. But what is Pat Morris leaving the office of the mayor? How might that affect how the council works together and some of the policies perhaps going forward?
I think it depends very much who replaces him. I think Pat Morris has been very well thought of in the community of San Bernardino. If you saw the people who turned out when he announced the first time he was running for office, it was every mover and shaker in the city. It's been a very difficult time. He, like every mayor before him, with Penman in office, has clashed with the city attorney, and that's really set the tone for what's gone on the council. So if Penman is gone and Morris is gone, it really depends on who takes his place as mayor, what sets the tone for the city going forward.
All right. Well, it was an interesting election before tonight. It continues to be an interesting election. And Cassie, we want to thank you for continuing to follow this and sharing your insight. We appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome.
All right. And now I think we're going to go to at least one video. We've had reporters reporting from the field using their iPads to tape segments, and a lot of times they've been able to talk to candidates. And I believe this we have the San Bernardino mayoral candidate, Mr. Davis. We have an interview with him, so let's show that.
Well, I think it's crucial because our city is in bankruptcy, as you mentioned. But in addition to that, it's not just the financial bankruptcy that we're suffering from. We're also suffering from organizational dysfunction. And that organizational dysfunction requires, I believe, somebody that's had success and an organization that's been successful. So the current incumbents that are running, they've come from a background, and at least in our city council, that's coming from a broken system. In order to be able to fix that, I think you need to have some experience in a successful organization. That's the experience that I bring to the table, is having worked with many organizations, both as a CPA and currently as a controller for a manufacturing company. I've had the opportunity to be in successful companies and see how they operate and how they should operate as a policy-making body.
All right. Well, again, that was San Bernardino mayoral candidate Carrie Davis, who, if the results stand and the ballots are still being counted, would face Wendy McCamick in a future runoff. I believe that's February, but I might want to double check that. But in any event, that would be the runoff for the race to succeed Pat Morris as mayor of the city of San Bernardino. So with that, that's it for this installment of our live politics show, our live continuing coverage of election 2013 here in the Inland Empire. We will have another segment here around 11 o'clock with, again, some further updates, and hope to have a couple reporters join us to talk about a couple school board races. So we hope you can be there for that. I'm Jeff Horseman for the Press Enterprise and PE.com. Thank you for watching.